And the reviews are starting to come in on the carbon tax ads. They're a bit mixed. I think in the minds of some, they might be a little confused that they have anything at all to do with the carbon tax.
Well, indeed, on account of not mentioning the carbon tax and all. You know, you're kind of in a funny place, don't you, when people's defence of ads is, oh, they tested really well. But I think, look, my starting point is always, I just think the public are really particularly kind of inoculated against government advertising. And let's face it, a lot of government advertising is actually really bad at convincing you of anything. So if your natural starting point is scepticism anyway, and on some levels, kind of, isn't that even more offensive? The governments take your money, they spend it on a whole lot of ads, and they're actually not even that good.
Also, it's just brain dead. I mean, obviously they road tested these ads with focus groups or something, but they've hung a lantern over the whole thing by ignoring it. They think no one was going to notice it. Didn't mention not carbon tax, even carbon price. I mean, you'd be better off just mentioning it and saying, look, you know, if you really believe in the policy, this is part of, you know, saving the environment, etc. We're going to put a price on carbon, but you won't be left out. Just it reminds me in 07 when the Howard government just overnight abolished the term work choices, and they didn't think we'd notice, and it stuck out like, you know, and it's the same thing.
Part of your problem as a government is that people think you're being a bit too tricky and spin obsessed and not quite telling the whole truth on things.
And it's the very criticism of Labor that they're not backing themselves in.
You're saying they should go back to the beginning and kind of explain some of the basics. Just Julia Gillard at a news conference during the week.
You've got to remember that the price isn't paid by you, it's paid by the big businesses that are generating the carbon pollution. But some of those businesses will flow, some of the price impact through, and that's how it turns up on the things that you buy and you use.
Yeah, that was at a community cabinet in Victoria during the week. Now, Brian, there are opinion polls that say, a Galaxy poll, I think 66% of Australians would support this when the proposition was put to them that the government intends to tax the big polluters, and then if they pass on prices, you'll be compensated. When it's explained simply, they say, oh, that's not so bad.
Well, that's what the government's proposing. In fact, the compensation's so generous that it costs more than the tax actually raises. And I think, you know, the government's big hope is that it will be like the GST. It was a much bigger tax. When it came in, it just disappeared as a problem. The difficulty here is, I think, that people dislike Julia Gillard more than they dislike the carbon tax. It's not just, we should say, it's not just households, it's businesses getting this compensation too. The big winners are brown coal producers in Victoria, who were coal-fired electricity producers, who'll get a trouser, $1 billion this June. They'll not be less competitive, they'll still be more competitive than any other form of power generation. In will come Tony Abbott, get rid of the carbon price, and they won't have to pay back the $1 billion. They're pretty lucky.
Well, I think even the opposition will put this issue to one side tomorrow, because, of course, the address to the Parliament will happen at, 12 o'clock, Bill? Is that
midday schedule.
Midday. Now, James Ashby, though, on the other issue, on the Peter Slipper issue, created a bit of interest this week when he said he'd be taking two senators from either side of politics, Barnaby Joyce and Bob Carr, to the Human Rights Commission, because they'd criticised his tactics, essentially. Bob Carr, nevertheless, remained defiant. Let's hear from him.
Sexual harassment is serious precisely because of that. If there is a complaint, take it to the authorities. Don't have a meeting with your employer's political opponent on 3 occasions. Don't talk on 3 occasions and through emails with the opposition's chief attack dog, or have a telephone call with the deputy leader of the Liberal Party. Let's keep it clean and lodge a complaint and see that it's heard in the proper way, not filtered through politics.
Now, that proposition was put to Tony Abbott on the Today Show, and he maintains that he did do it the right way. Here he is.
Do you think that he should have taken this complaint through the proper channels as well?
Well, that's exactly what Mr Ashby's done. That's exactly what he was advised to do by Mal Brough.
But ordinarily in these situations, wouldn't somebody who felt that they were being sexually harassed, we're not talking assault here, being harassed, you would make that known to the person, to the employer or whoever it is that was... But in this case, there was no direct complaint made to Peter Slipper, right?
That's the nub of the Commonwealth's defence in the legal proceedings that are underway. Essentially, it's saying that they believe there was a step before taking it through the formal legal channels in the courts.
Just by saying, look, I don't think your behaviour is appropriate.
They said there was a number of options. You could go to the department or to the,
And the argument that James Ashby's legal team seemed to have put in that context is essentially saying that he didn't feel that he could pursue those other options.
Because
Persecuted.
A fear of
He'd be
persecution, or that it
persecuted.
wouldn't be handled properly, or...
But then if you then go directly to the media and the law simultaneously, wouldn't that also raise the possibility that you might be persecuted?
Well, exactly. I mean, well, what the government lawyers said was, you know, the slipper got the served with the papers. Must have been exactly around the same time as the Daily Telegraph for the telly to get it already for the front page the next day and put it online at about midnight that night or 1 in the morning. So it was a very cynical sort of statement by the Commonwealth lawyers. They were basically saying this whole thing's been designed to run through the media and for maximum effect.
Now, this email from email exchange between Christopher Pyne and James Ashby. Firstly, the one from Christopher Pyne, and it says, you see, only APH, I mean, Australian Parliament House, you see, only APH address. What does that mean? Is that code for something? I just don't.
The implication suggests I don't have a private email address, doesn't it?
Right, and so the only one you've given me is the...
Oh, look, I think the guts of it
Does it matter?
basically is... Well, where it matters, if it matters, is basically Christopher said, you know, initial, when this was put to him by Jess Wright, the reporter who broke it, that I can't recall any contact with Ashby. It was his original source was a hello on the way in and out the office, and then...
Well, it's such an innocuous contact.
Well, I guess,
it's the sort of thing you might forget, isn't it?
Well, exactly. There's been a couple of emails that have since been uncovered. So it's been a gradual... Well, look, in this atmosphere, everything is significant, and every denial that is proved otherwise is significant. I think that's why it's important.